This is Let's Talk. Let's bring that down. There you go. This is Let's Talk. Call-in radio. Hello, everybody. Radical radio. We're having a little problem. There we are. Let's start again, shall we? This is Let's Talk. Collective wisdom radio, let's call it that. Why not? Getting to the root causes of the important issues of the day. This on-the-air community forum believes your voice matters and welcomes all thoughts and views without too much judgment. Please join today's conversation by calling 415-663-8492 or 8317 or tweet us at Let's Talk on KWMR. I have the tweet box right in front of me.
And your hosts today are Paul Raffel, leading our conversation on sports, and Mary Frank answering the phones, and I'm Robin Carpenter.
And when you call in and hear the phone ringing, please hang on. When you hear me say you're on the air, please give us your name, turn down your radio, and please watch your language.
Yes, watch that language. And today we're talking about an icon of human civilization, I guess. I mean, it's everywhere. We're going to be talking mostly about American sports today. Not because the rest of the world is not fanatical about their own sports, mostly soccer, but I was struck by, I actually watched some of the Olympics and some of the U.S. Open tennis tournament, and saw a piece of a game the other day, what was it, football game, I guess it was. That's what they call it. And
oh, you Brit.
That's what they call it here. And I just wanted to talk about it and wondering about fans' attitudes towards their teams, especially after, and coincidentally about the same time, John Oliver did a piece on how the sports teams hold cities to ransom when they want a new stadium. They say, well, we're just going to leave. We're going to move to LA. What the hell? And how do supporters of teams feel about that when it's when there's, if you're a real fan, how can you not feel betrayed when, for instance, the San Francisco 49ers move to Santa Clara, or when the Buffalo Bills moved somewhere else? I don't know. I have a whole list of teams that moved to other places, and it seems to me that would be a betrayal. Other than that, why? What is it about sports that is so alluring to you? Do you sit at home with a bag of chips and a couple of beers and watch the game all by yourself? Do you go to the stadium? What's the attraction? And we have
a caller. Hello, caller. You're on the air. What's your name, please? Hello.
Hello.
There you are.
Hello. Hello.
Yes, you're on.
Yes. Well, my name is Charles, but you know that, darling.
Don't call me darling.
Well, you've changed since last night. I would just like to say I do believe in the collective wisdom of this place. My collective wisdom. A few sports anecdotes. I was stopped on the street in San Rafael by a camera crew with Paul Fenn one evening, and they asked us if we were interested in the Giants being in the Super Bowl or whatever it was. And Paul Fenn said, I'm from Oakland, so I hate all sports.
Oh.
And another anecdote, our French friend in Tamales was once ejected from the William Tell for making repeated comments on the homoeroticism of professional American football.
Of football, with the boys in tight pants slapping each other on the behind. And
he said, why does that man put his hands down there? I mean, I don't, and they call him tight end. It's too much.
Yes.
No, I would say, I realize this because I occasionally do watch sports with my... Oh, there's coffee up there, Paul. I'll be up in a moment. With my exalted neighbor, Paul Elmore, who is literally standing 10 feet above me. I do it. It's meditative. Your mind clears. I mean, it's a kind of empty space and nothing. I think women in West Marin have Buddhism, and men have, the.
Hey, wait! There are a lot of women in West Marin who love baseball. That's our church. So.
Yes, that's right.
Is it? I mean, I can't. It is what a denigration of the human spirit. that all of this ogling of television screens, and those people who applaud them, they're people that clap.
Well, so what is the reason behind that? I mean, it's not just empty-headedness, and there's something attractive about sports. There's something that brings us... I mean, have you ever been in a stadium of cheering fans, cheering on the team? You feel like you're part of the tribe. I mean, there's this incredible rush, oxytocin, all that sort of stuff.
I in the biggest one of all, the University of Michigan's football stadium, 115,000 people. But
Yeah.
I mean, you can go back to Byzantium, as you can always go back to Byzantium. When you're talking to me, the Blues and the Greens, the two rival factions that supported different charioteers, literally brought down emperors and attacked each other in mobs. So you could go to Glasgow and see the sectarian violence between the two soccer teams,
the
Protestant, one Catholic.
Well, I have a theory about that.
Up the Rangers.
Which is, I think one of the reasons people like it so much, Charles, is that forgetting the fighting, but when a stadium is full of people cheering for their team, it's a kind of community that we all crave as our communities break up, not so much in West Berlin, but in practically the rest of the country. And it's a way of community. It's a way that men especially can be non-competitive in their cheering. So where, if they're cheering for the same team, it's a form of bonding without competition. I think this is a very important. Well, anyway, I feel it's significant.
They had events like that in the 30s in a town called Nuremberg.
Not exactly the same thing.
Come now.
Not exactly. Since they made my relatives into lampshades, I'm a little sensitive about that.
Right.
You should be, and that's why you should be revolted by the sight of 50,000 people all cheering on the same team.
Well, actually, it doesn't really thrill me. I'm one of the women that doesn't like competitive sports. I particularly don't like football, where you see people getting injured constantly all throughout the game. And, that kind of violence is not attractive to me.
Well, but that's the whole point. The people that watch the cars going around in a circle just to see if one of them will crash and kill somebody. Mm-hmm. That was the point of, well, we must quote Juvenal. That was Juvenal, the Roman poet about bread and circuses. That's what the people want.
He was a young poet, apparently.
The bloodier, the better. But you have to be careful. You have to guard your eyes in an age of spectacle like this, Mary, because I can guarantee you, if you are in a place where there's a television screen, you will inevitably look at that television screen. If it is boxing, if it is two people fighting, you will watch them fight because you're hardwired to respond to violence.
No, I will not watch. I will change the channel or turn it off.
Oh, that's
I
good.
don't like violent competitive sports. It's a total turn-off to me. In fact, I don't get it.
Well, you're enlightened, Mary, but I'm saying
thank you.
most people, all people really are hardwired to respond to images or the presence of violence or sex.
You think, wait, Charles, you think we're hardwired to that we crave to see violence? That there's something in the human condition that we're crave that?
Violence is a part of life. I mean, the fiction we live in is that we're not violent people. Of course,
What about the flight or fight mechanism, which triggers us to not get hurt? So I don't understand how we could be hardwired. I think our wiring could be shifted by the culture, but I don't think that's our innate wiring.
Yeah, I think that we respond visually to violence. Yeah, absolutely. And I would say that
In a positive way, like attracted to it.
It was Gore Vidal's comment on the Zapruder film and the death of Kennedy. He said there was an almost sexual pleasure in watching the young prince be violently killed.
Well, maybe for Gore Vidal.
Yeah, he's into that.
What people like Gore Vidal do, and myself, no doubt, is expose to us what we don't want to think of ourselves, but is true. And now we live in an empire. Violence is something that happens thousands of miles away from us, or perhaps in the East Bay. We don't see it. But it doesn't mean that it's not part of our nature.
Sure.
Well, that may be part of it, but I think when you go into, I have gone to a Giants game, not many, and it is fun every 25 years. But what I got from it, and this is just personal, is that it was wonderful to see people having such a good time together. I'm going to go back to the community thing. The violence thing is people are not necessarily hardwired that way. Maybe in this culture but you can't say all human beings because you can go to other cultures where that's not necessarily true.
Well, Mary, let me try and explain this very briefly before you immediately hang up on me.
Yeah, I got the knobs here.
Exactly. She's at the controls. Stop her, Rafael. The point of say, to get back to our sensitive topic, the point of, say, The Great Dictator, the movie by Charlie Chaplin.
Yeah.
That he looks like the great dictator, right? He just happens to be, the tramp happens to look like this Adolf Hitler figure. And so at the end, he's mistaken for him, and he's pushed forward at this massive recreation of a Nuremberg rally. And he says, no, all men should care for each other, and we should look out for one another and be good to our fellows. And after he makes his speech pleading with the people there cheering for violence, they all cheer wildly for him, too. So you have to understand, it is the context itself which creates a kind of mob mentality, and will cheer for anything. So perhaps they're cheering for baseball. If you put another sport in there, if you put a public execution in there, they will cheer just as wildly, and they'll have just as good a time. You know, the last lynching in California was in San Jose in 1934, I think.
Let's go to Concord in 1975 at the BART station.
Oh, well, I don't know. I mean, the 70s, that was so long ago. We all did things back then. No, not me, of course. But the accounts of it, there was a woman who gave the account of this mob moving through town to hang these men. Right? She said there was an almost sexual charge in the air.
Well, we're seeing that with Trump. The Trump is firing up all those kind of instincts.
I have to say, I thought we were going to talk about sports. If we have to talk about Trump, I'm going to lynch somebody.
Okay, I apologize. I think it depends on what is.
It's spectators. It's spectator sports. I think that it's absolutely right to talk about contemporary politics in the same vein as football. And
All right, I'd like to interject what the famous poet William Carlos Williams wrote in his poem, "The Crowd at the Ball Game." A part of the poem, "The crowd at the ball game is moved uniformly by a spirit of uselessness which delights them." And now he's speaking of baseball, which is not, violent, bloody sport that I've seen. And, I think part of what we need to understand about ourselves as human beings is that we love to be entertained. We love to take our minds off of things. We love to know about a game. Most humans like to play games. I love to play cards. I love to play games. And so there are all these different parts of ourselves that are being engaged. And as Mary was saying, particularly in baseball is a very slow-paced event, so it's very social and communal. You're sitting and you can chat with each other and you can eat. And you're, and it's more nuanced and it's a slower pace. And I think, that there are other aspects to why people, not every, the entire town did not run after the person being hung.
Oh, yeah.
Those certain people did. I doubt every single person in the town ran to see that. I have a hard time believing that.
I have a little bit of a thorn in my side about the huge money that's being made by these outrageously profitable sports nonprofits. And I know that the NFL is now going to be for profit because they don't want to disclose how many billions of dollars they're making anymore. And they've had, of course, a lot of bad rap about some of the players, and they don't want to be under the microscope. But the National Hockey League, the PGA, the Olympic Committee, none of the... No, wait, let me finish. None of these organizations pay taxes, and just that is enough to annoy me to never want to watch again.
Well, I look... to the William Carlos Williams quote, it is the empowerment of disempowerment. That is what you get when you stand with this mob. And you can say it's a pleasant feeling, and I would agree with you. Because we all respond to that pleasant feeling. However, we should mistrust it.
What about going to a theater and applauding a play? Is that the mob mentality also, or are we just having a good time?
I would love it if 50,000 people were going to the theater.
Or a concert. How about if what if your favorite singer were still alive and hadn't been killed back in 1941? What if he were popular enough to be in a stadium and there were 50,000 people came to see him and cheer him on? Wouldn't that feel good? Wouldn't you feel part of the crowd?
The West Berlin thing. Don't you want to join the orgy too?
Well, no. Wait now. You've never been to a gathering where you've enjoyed yourself being part of the crowd.
This is not.
Is this what you're saying?
The thing is you should suspect the fact...
Wait, you have to answer that, Charles. You have to answer that.
Well, I've already conceded. I do, but you should be terrified of it. I'll give you an example. Americans don't understand this, and apparently the people from the British Isles neither. Say, Ceausescu's Romania in the 1980s, there were big tours. Yes, of course.
Oh, yes, I remember it well.
Indeed. They had big tours that went around the country with rock bands and laser light shows.
Of course.
Ceausescu himself had a court poet,
right.
A fellow who died recently, mourned by none. And he would read these poems about the great leader, and it was this great thing. Now,
of course,
Bono does that today, and we all think that's very normal and enjoyable to go see Bono with his...
Okay, so you just don't want to be in a crowd anywhere and have a good time.
He's not going to come to the winter solstice orgy, I guess. Okay.
Thank you, Charles.
Thanks, Charles.
Thank you so much.
This is Let's Talk Radio with host Paul Raffel, Robin Carpenter. Oh, no, host Paul Raffel, me, Robin Carpenter, and Mary Frank manning the phones. Please call us at 415-663-8492 or 663-8317 and give us your opinions and thoughts about sports. You can also tweet us at Let's Talk on KWMR with your thoughts and opinions. Paul's got the tweet box in front of him. So, yeah, we'd love to hear people's opinions.
Charles brings up great points, of course, that the mob mentality, of course, is a part of humanity, unfortunately, and that terrible things can happen when people get together. But, and let's go to football, for example. American football, that is now it's coming to light that the injury is being caused because of the way they've been trained and because of the way they're bred like bulls and turned into these steroid-filled mountains of muscle and fat that can hit really hard. They're trained to hit with their heads, head to head, and this is the big thing that everyone loves, right? And it's causing damage, and they're teaching that to children as well. Now, this is finally, this is why the rise of soccer in America, because it's more running around. It's not all that physical contact. Yeah, and of course the crowd and the people the guys in the sports bars and at home with the chips and the dips and their buddies in the game room are all cheering on every time somebody gets hit really hard, which is and that knowledge disturbing, I'd say.
That knowledge about the damage and the brain damage and the body damage has been out there a long time. A very dear friend of mine, Bill Couturier, did a documentary for HBO. I think it's been 25 years, called Disposable Heroes, where he documented famous football players. Some of them just 10 years, 35, you can't even get out of the bed, can barely move, the brain damage. And so, this was being brought to our attention 25 years ago, and now the studies are just horrifying as to why, to be frank, why anyone. I know my nephew's letting my little great nephew, play football back in the Southeast, and I was, sad to see that. I just think it's too risky. It's too, and just full disclosure, my first husband number one, that I married, he actually played for the University of Alabama for Bear Bryant. And so he was, a big guy, and I can remember just how beat up he was constantly getting and how violent it was.
Right, and the training is to take out your opponent, right? It's not about...
kill the competition.
It's not like in soccer where you're chasing each other around and you're tackling, and if you do a hard tackle, then you're penalized and you might get thrown out of the game. Here, it's... the harder the tackle, the better it is. Not that it isn't a great spectacle, and it's awfully glitzy, and there's beautiful young women in skimpy suits.
But you can look at basketball, both basketball and baseball. I mean, basketball could be very violent as well, but there's not this whole thing about, in basketball, you do get penalized if you are deliberately trying to hurt someone.
And then there's NHL, which is like boxing on ice.
Hockey. I went to a few hockey games. Oh, my Lord.
But, going back to what you were saying, Paul, about the the festive nature of it. I think that, this culture doesn't have enough holidays. What do we have? We have Christmas and Thanksgiving together and a little bit of Easter. And cultures need to blow it off at least once a month. And even in Europe, they have the Saints' Day or the this or the something. And so there's an opportunity to get together and celebrate. And I think sports have taken that place, or that void, let's put it that way. Right. And it has become a party. It is a way of socializing. It is a way of having fun. And with lots of people. I mean, with the... what is it called? And when the big football game, what's it called?
Super Bowl.
The Super Bowl. The Super Bowl is like a religious experience in this country, which completely fascinates me.
Well, this is the thing. So this adulation, it's an addiction. It could be an addiction, right? I mean, it's like so many things in Western life, especially in American life. We eat foods that used to be called feast foods, and we eat them every day, and we're feasting on sugar and fat. And this is something, as you say, we would celebrate things all together as a community, maybe once a month, or maybe once every couple of months, once a season, and now we can do it every week, all year round, and it's this constant, I want more input. I want more stimulation. I want something to cheer about. I want to,
Well, it's interesting.
Or it's escaping from
the idea of it as a religion just brings to mind one of my favorite movies was Bull Durham, which this baseball-loving, highly sexed Southern belle named Annie, played by Susan Sarandon, and she says, if you don't mind me quoting her from the movie, she says, "I believe in the Church of Baseball. I've tried all the major religions and many of the minor ones. I've worshipped Buddha, Allah, Brahma, Vishnu, Siva, trees, mushrooms, and Isadora Duncan. I know things. For instance, there are 108 beads in a Catholic rosary, and there are 108 stitches in a baseball. So when I heard that, I gave Jesus a chance. But it just didn't work out between us. The Lord laid too much guilt on me, so I prefer metaphysics to theology. You see, there's no guilt in baseball, and it's never boring, which makes it like sex. I've tried them all. I really have. The only church that truly feeds the soul day in and day out is the Church of Baseball."
I don't think it's anything like sex. I'm just putting my 2 cents in.
Well, nice slow sex.
Call in 124-156-38492 or 8317, or tweet me at Let's Talk on KW.
Yeah, we'd love to hear your feelings about all of this.
So I've found some articles, why are we so in love with sports? And so here's a list of things. Self-esteem benefits, right? I mean, if you're a fan of a winning team, you are identifying with that team. It's like as if you are a member of the team.
And as if you won.
Yeah, as if you won.
And also even in the negative, like the New Orleans Aints, we used to call ourselves, our Saints fans, we call ourselves the Aints because we would never, ever, ever win. So it's also that reverse loving identity.
Pride. There's that East Coast Bowl baseball team that never won.
Was it? That's right, for like 30 years.
And they just got to the playoffs. They didn't win though, right? Anyway, people like sports because their boyfriend or girlfriend likes it. People like sports because it's exciting. People like it because it's aesthetically pleasing. It's a venue for emotional expression, an escape from real-world troubles, and a sense of belonging, a connection to a wider world. This is...
and I think that's the strongest of all, that sense of community.
Right.
Because we don't have much of that. I'm just going to repeat that. I think that's a big factor.
And it's there's apparently studies, they're talking about the mirror neurons that helps you feel empathy, and the mirror neurons are firing off if you're in a crowd, if you're in a group of people who are cheering on the team. The mirror neurons are kicking in, and you're feeling as if you are one. You're one with them all.
Like a rock concert.
Like a rock concert, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And they did MRI studies that they showed that a region of the brain usually associated with planning and controlling actions is activated when players and fans listen to conversations about their sport. So the area of the brain that players use when they're actually playing the game are fired up when people are talking about the game. I guess this is why there's 24-hour discussion of sports on the ESPN2 or whatever it is, where a bunch of big, brawny guys are sitting around a table talking about sports. To paraphrase the old saying, it's like dancing about architecture to me. But
okay, we have a caller. Caller, you're on the air. What's your name, please?
My name is David.
Hi, David.
Hello.
Good morning.
Good morning
Good
to you, sir.
morning.
Been only listening intermittently because I've got interruptions, but one thing on your list that you left out was why people like sports.
Yeah.
And I would say particularly men, competition.
Competition, right. Yes, we're a competitive species, I think. Are we not? Isn't that not hardwired in?
I think everybody's got different levels of competitiveness. Like I know I like to play board games and cards, and I'm super competitive, more so than other people that don't want to play with me. David, what do you think about that for yourself?
Well, there are some competitions that I like and some that I don't. There's a board game that I love to play, and it always makes me tense up inside, even though it's just a silly board game. It depends on luck and also on, it depends on luck and also, as in what cards you get, but also how you play them. So it's a combination of both.
What about the big sports teams? Are you a fan of those?
I'm a Giants fan.
And why do you like going to games or being a fan of the Giants?
I don't so much like going to games because it's coming from West Marine, it's a big thing to do. It starts at 3:30 or so for me, and then doesn't get home till 11 or 12 or 1, which I don't mind occasionally. But
do your friends get together and watch the game?
I have tried. I've advertised on West Marin Share numerous times to try and get together with somebody to either play catch, no response, or it really surprises me because I love throwing a baseball. It's great exercise, and I just like to see that little white thing floating through the air. And also I've tried to get together with people to watch, and haven't had success with that either.
So have you ever tried like going to a sports bar, or I don't know, usually at the Western or the Station House they'll have the game on. Have you ever done that?
Cafe Ray's.
They do that.
Station House isn't really arranged for that. The Western and enough experiences there that just turned me off to the place, even though that doesn't always happen. I enjoyed Cafe Ray's, but they don't. It's not really as much of an emphasis. Often sound is turned off, then you have to sit. You have to arrange your seating so you're sitting close enough.
Yeah.
So did you grow up playing baseball? Did you grow up watching baseball with your dad, or was that part of your family?
Not with my dad. It was me, just me. But I loved watching it, and I loved playing it. And I never really thought of it as competition. When I was doing that, when I was either watching it or playing it. And now I don't know, the need for expressing competition, I think, is more basic with a lot of people than they realize, for one thing, and also more men than women, I would say, or at least it comes out in a much stronger, more vociferous way.
Okay,
well, thank you, David.
Thank you very much for your comments. We appreciate them.
You're all welcome.
Thanks,
for the
David.
program.
Thank you.
So it's interesting because another disclaimer, I worked for KCBS years ago, and they didn't have any women on the sales team, and CBS aired the 49ers, and we also had partnership around the San Francisco Giants. And so I was hired specifically to sell sports sponsorships and work with the 49ers. And someone who had escaped the overwhelming, just drowning in college baseball fanaticism of the Deep South, I was slightly dismayed. I had always wanted to work for CBS, but I did not want to be sort of put on the team of doing sports. And so what really came about was the amazing Ray Barnett said, Robin, what sports is really about is, first of all, I want a woman selling sports, and I want to bring more women into enjoying sports. And he said the real power of sports, and especially it will be for women, is the power of story. Because fans know the stories of each player. They know who has kids. They know whose wife is pregnant. They know, and giving this story. And I was very blessed at the time that it was Bill Walsh who was the coach for the 49ers, a wonderful, gentlemanly, scholarly man. And Jerry Rice had just come. I remember Bill Walsh making me sit by Jerry Rice because he says, he's this shy kid we just picked up from Mississippi, and not knowing he would be one of the greatest.
So you were like a member of the family of the 49ers for a while.
Well, I had to learn everybody's stories because I still didn't. And I still, to be frank, even though my husband had played for, the famous Bear Bryant, I still didn't quite understand the rules half the time.
Well, yeah.
And
well, you're just a girl.
Yeah, but it was very interesting to learn. Once you learned everybody's stories, then because I had to go to the games every week, which to me in the beginning, my friends were so jealous because I got to go sit in the box and I hated it. But over time, it was like, wow, look at Joe throw that pass. Wow, look at Jerry get it. Those two guys are so fun and they're so sweet. And
the glory
his baby girl is so darling. Well, it was just that everybody that I met at that time were really nice folks. I mean, they were the team itself, every team sort of has its feelings, like its feel to it. And so that was there. But that's part of the thing is you've got to sense the story.
Yeah.
Okay, this is KWMR Community Radio for West Marin, 90.5 Point Reyes Station, 89.9 in Bolinas, 92.3 in the San Geronimo Valley, and streaming live on kwmr.org. And we'd like to thank our sponsors for KWMR, Anthony Moore Design and Build, a licensed building contractor. More information about booking a consultation available by phone at 415-497-7311 or by email at arm.design.build@gmail.com. And we'd also like to thank the Station House Cafe. I'm sorry, Toby's Feed Barn. Hang on a second, I've got this. No, I've got it right. A Station House Cafe serving breakfast, lunch, and dinner in downtown Point Reyes Station since 1974. Wow. The Station House Cafe is a proud supporter of KWMR and all things local, offering live music, garden, dining, cocktails, and more. Information and reservations available at 415-663-1515 or online at stationhousecafe.com.
And you're listening to Let's Talk Radio with co-host Paul Raffel, Mary Frank, and I'm Robin Carpenter. Please call in and share your views, opinions, or experiences about sports, positive or negative. You can call us at 415-663-8492 or 663-8317, or you can tweet us at Let's Talk on KWMR. And today we're asking, how do you feel about sports? What do you think about your favorite team, or are you indifferent to sports? Could your wife or partner or husband be rooting for an opposing team? Give us some of your viewpoints and what you think about sports. So when you call in, you'll hear Mary say you're on the air. Give us your first name, turn down your radio, and please watch your sporty language.
Watch your sporty language, exactly. So being a fan of the Giants and all that, of course, they used to be the New York Giants. How does a fan of the San Francisco Giants, I mean, what if they were to move to Cincinnati or somewhere? Would you still be a Giant? Would a Giants fan still be a Giants fan, or would they just feel betrayed and...
I've seen this happen where you still follow the team when you move.
It's interesting because my husband, number two, he was a baseball fan when it used to be the San Francisco Seals before we got the Giants. And so he, and he was from Nicaragua, and Nicaraguans in a lot of Central American countries love baseball. And so he had been watching them when there was the old Seals Stadium out, I think it was out in the Abbott. It was out near Golden Gate Park. So and then when the Giants came, then they switched over. So he just segued with them, was what he said. It's like whatever the team is of your town, you stay with that. My guess is if a team leaves that you loved, then you would, maybe watch them if they went to the other city. To me, it seems like it would be more. I mean, if I do watch football, I will watch the two teams that I used to watch growing up, and I have no idea why my dad and I would watch the Minnesota Vikings, but I loved everything Viking. So I would like to watch the Vikings because anything Viking fascinated me as a child.
Would you watch a football game all by yourself?
I would have it on, when I was not so much. I might have it on the background. And it's funny, I don't really like to watch baseball. I like to listen to it on the radio because that's how I kind of did that. But, I'm trying to think if I even... It's been so long because when I met Andy, husband number 3.5,
This is getting interesting.
I know, cheesy. Andy was not that into sports, and neither was I. I had become so obsessed with fishing by that point that all I wanted to do in any time off was either to fish or just like a sports fanatic, or I would sit for hours and talk fishing. If anyone wanted to talk fly fishing, I can talk fly fishing. It would illuminate my brain and make me feel like I was fishing. So I had gone to another phase of my life, and he was not into. He never was. He said he never really was into that kind of thing. He'll like to watch like the Super Bowl or something like that. He'll want to do that.
So how about kids playing sports now? We've already talked about the damage that can be done when the people who are training them are making them hit too hard if they're playing football. But isn't it about fun and coordination and skills and team ethic and, all that?
Have you ever been to a Little League game?
Oh, the parents?
Oh, my goodness. Yeah. I was a witness to that several times. And on the one hand, it can be a lot of fun for the kids. But if the adults are overly involved, I've seen kids just break down crying and be miserable. So it kind of depends on who is organizing it and what they're stressing. If they're stressing teammanship and sportsmanship and having a good time.
Just having a good time.
But if it's winning, at all cost winning, kids have a terrible time with that.
Okay, so on the opposite side of that is the fact that, like, when my son was 5 or 6, everybody was like, he has to play soccer. I said, why does he have to play soccer? He's terrible at that. I was teaching him to play tennis. He liked tennis. And they were like, because every child needs to be on a team. And so every person Luis was, please forgive me, Luis, but he was a terrible soccer player. He was awful, and it was boring, and I thought, but every team, everyone gets a trophy, and so I thought, hey, if you're really teaching them about competition, they need to learn about winning and losing. They need to learn this kid's really, really good, and to pretend that everyone's the same. So that was odd to me because I thought, look, if you're really teaching them competition and game playing, then the kid who was the best should get a VIP award. And people who just showed up and sat there picking their nose, why did they all get a trophy too? Everybody gets a trophy.
So I had my traumatic time because I was the tallest in class always.
They wanted you to play basketball.
They put me well, we didn't really do that. My secondary school, we did have a basketball court, but it wasn't really going then. But soccer. On these cold, horrible, snowy days with frozen mud and no tracksuits, just shorts and shirts, and they always put me in goal because I was the tall guy. And, I'm not going to throw myself on frozen mud to try and stop a ball going in.
You were the tallest and smartest.
Yeah, and listeners, please let us know your feelings about this. Call us at 415-663-8492.
Yes, let's hear from some more fans because I'm really interested in the loyalty thing and to teams. I'm shocked by the way teams treat cities and their players and their
at the end of the
fans,
day, it's almost like when you think about the Church of Baseball. Is at the end of the day, it's all about money. They're making money. They're about making money.
But
we're attached to them on an emotional level as our team, our players. But they're doing it to make money.
And maybe that's why they're getting away with being a nonprofit for so long, because it is outrageous to me. I'm going back to that, but I just think it's absolutely unbelievable that they're making billions, and even college sports as well. They're making billions and billions of dollars, and it's tax-free.
But, a lot of fans have. I remember when the baseball strike happened and, all the scandals around the steroid usage. There have been fans who've left the game because they just said, it's becoming too corrupt. It's not this beautiful thing of these players and da-da-da. there's all these, just like our country, there are all these, this game rigging, so to speak.
Winning at all costs. Lance Armstrong.
Well, basically, it's all about greed and money.
Yeah.
And as fans, we like to believe it's about relationship, but they don't care.
And also the quality of the players, I think, has changed a lot, Robin. We didn't have men beating up their wives and dragging them out of elevators.
We didn't know about it.
We didn't know about it, but maybe it was always like that. But when there were people like Bill Walsh leading the...
I will say this, there's always been the domestic violence and the abuse by athletes. I know that from...
Well, that's from the steroid use.
No, even before. It's in the culture, the date rapes and stuff like that went on at the University of Alabama. I mean, nobody talked about it. People knew.
Penn State.
People knew that.
Penn State, oh my God.
Because the men that are doing this, the guys that are doing this, it's all about their physical prowess and overwhelming. And, it's a very oppressing, it's the culture itself. These guys are entitled. They're entitled to whatever girl they want, whatever, there's that attitude there.
Like that
I think that's always been there. And then you start to mix in steroids, and then you have even more problems.
We heard from Richard Kirschman, got an email from Richard. I think one of the reasons we're attracted to sports is that it is our culture's principal meritocracy. One doesn't make the team because of influence or who your daddy is. Well, that's
true.
That's an interesting point.
Certainly.
That's an interesting point.
And Bernie Steffen. Hi, Bernie.
Hey, Bernie.
Hi,
wrote in and said, we should localize our spectator interest from the global and national stages to our high school, little league, and recreational pickup games where we can personally participate and or encourage participations by others over a hierarchy of perfection that we now worship as a culture. Very good.
I agree with Bernie on that because I've meant to go watch. We have a little league team here, and I see the photos on Facebook of different folks here, their kids, that are playing, and I thought, that, and I did think about that. I thought, that would be a nice thing to do if the community goes to watch our kids play, even if we don't have kids who are playing, to just go be there and be supportive.
The longest game in the entire world is a Little League baseball game in February in freezing weather with 6-year-olds. Now, that is torture. So I recommend going to the spring and summer games.
Obviously, you haven't watched cricket.
No, I haven't.
Yes, which I was also made to do, and I was not good at cricket either. And I'm just not a running kind of guy.
But when you're tall, because I was my height by 6th grade, so I'm not considered tall now, but I was then. And to me, growing tall fast, you're kind of gangly, and because I played baseball, I grew up in a neighborhood full of boys, and I played baseball with the boys. But when I had that growth spurt and got super tall in about 2 years and gangly, my coordination really sucked, and the guys were already mean enough to me because I wanted to play. So they would throw the ball at my head.
I think maybe if there had been baseball in,
you probably would have been good at that.
I might have been good at it because I've always been good at throwing things till my shoulder went out. But
well, there was your calling. You missed it, Paul.
Yeah, I know. Well, it was a girls' game over there. My mother always said, "Oh, look, they're playing a girls' game."
Baseball's a girls' game.
Rounders, it's called there.
Oh, interesting.
I like netball.
Because they're not beating each other up.
Netball is a girls' game, which is basketball.
Okay, I'm going to interrupt this conversation to announce that this is KWMR's weekly Let's Talk call-in show with co-host Paul Raffel, Robin Carpenter, and me. I'm Mary Frank. To join our conversation, please call us at 415-663-8492 and join the conversation.
We know there's sports fans out there. Come on now.
And I would love to hear from somebody to talk about the bonding between, especially in our culture, we think of it as father and son, but watching sports, these kinds of sports on TV with a parent or in a family situation, how did sports or these kind of sports shape you as a child? Did you grow up watching baseball with your dad? Did you grow up, watching football?
Well, yes. We didn't. I guess we did have TV. Yeah, I mean, we used to watch rugby games mostly because my dad liked rugby. But I used to actually go and cheer on the team, even though I wasn't chosen to be on the soccer team for my school. I used to go and cheer them on Saturday mornings just 'cause. it was me and the referees and the umpires and the linesmen. That was kind of it. But it was fun after the game. You go to a coffee bar, have a frothy coffee, and it's nice, isn't it?
Yeah, I used to love to go watch our little league games because we could walk. It was this was in the day before everybody lived so spread out and drove everywhere. You could walk. It was a couple of blocks to where it was. And I also, being a food person, I associate baseball with food and all the different places like that. It would be like hot dogs and snow cones that, the moms would be making.
Yeah.
And, it looks like somebody's going to hopefully tell us some great sports stories.
And then there's we'll talk about hoop dreams afterwards, yes.
Okay, we have a caller. Caller, you're on the air. Tell us your name, please.
Well, I'm afraid, my darling, I had to...
Oh, you came back.
It's like a sports team that rises from the ashes.
Indeed, what is this love it? What is this? All of a sudden you get a critique of sports, and then everybody, but I love sports, and sports was so nice. Stop it.
Well, I was never any good at any sports, really, except dart throwing in the pub. That was my sport.
I love to do that.
With your afternoon.
Yes. Let's go play darts.
Well, I think there's a good side and a bad side and a medium side. I mean, it's not all good, all bad, all eh.
I think
it has good points and bad points. It's not
it's the
one way.
corporatization of it that I am shocked by. The NFL, for example, is the worst offender of all because they're the ones who tend to move their teams around at a whim and get their stadiums built, paid for by taxpayer money, and then they get all the profits.
Now, how do they do that? That is so amazing to me. How do they do that?
They always claim that they're going to be bringing a lot of money into the community by having the new stadium, and they're going to have all this great food and this and that, and that'll bring income into the community. But I believe that most studies have shown that the community ends up it's the franchise that profits.
Sure,
it's highway robbery.
They get everything. Anyway, Charles, did you have something to say?
Yeah, sorry about that.
No, I've been struck dumb.
Impossible.
I think to get back to Robin's earlier point, and this is a very important distinction, and yes, it does relate to sports, because of course it relates to everything, which is that you don't think that we're hardwired to be titillated by violence.
No, I think that's a learned behavior.
No, I think that's absolutely incorrect. Your virtue, which you trained yourself to do, you disciplined yourself to do, is to turn away from those kinds of things and not support them. What I'm saying is you deny your own virtue by saying, well, this is just innately part of me. But I think that's a wrong view, and this is an ancient philosophical debate about whether we're inherently good or inherently bad, and we don't have to get into it. But I really think that it's a mistake. And
I don't think by nature people like pain. I don't think they do.
Oh, no, they like other people's pain.
Not necessarily. I'm going to argue with that.
Look, Mary, I think it is a part of your goodness that you have done in yourself. You have trained yourself to have this virtue. And that's a good thing, but you should think of it that way, not as I am just naturally good, and those people are just...
I never said I'm naturally good. I can be rotten sometimes, but I don't like to see people hurt. That does not turn me on in any way.
But that's good, and I'm saying that is something that culture and a civilization promotes, and something that you have disciplined yourself to do. But back...
No. I just want just to make the record clear and true. I have been like that since I've been a little tiny child. Well, it always bothered me. Oh,
well, that's good. I would say,
yes,
to get back to sports, because, Mary, you're taking this conversation all over the place.
No, that's okay. So are you.
Noam Chomsky says, people make fun of Americans. They say Americans are idiots. They said, but look at the baseball enthusiasts and all of the statistical analysis they do of that game and how much they know about its history and how involved they are with their minds, with their higher faculties to invest themselves in studying baseball and loving baseball.
But see, as not necessarily a sport fan, that has always struck me as absolutely ridiculous. Look at all the wonderful things that all that brilliance can go apply to, but I realize not everybody's the same. Some people enjoy it, so go to it. But it just seems to me that the amount of money, attention, and time that's devoted to this does seem a little out of balance.
Look, the idea you enjoy it, so go do it, I mean, that's Gaddafi's law. That's Caligula's favorite watermelon. Give me a break. The thing is, we have to be virtuous, and that's what gets back to: do you like violence or not like violence? We train ourselves to have these values and these disciplines in our culture that say, no, we're going to reject that and promote this. And so I think those people spending their time with baseball have wasted their lives.
Oh.
But they don't think so. And we never know what their path is. Nobody knows what your path is when you come in. We can't judge somebody else's path. Some people come in to be jerks.
Right,
some people come in to be statisticians. Okay.
I'd like us to talk more about sports. Paul, jump in. It's your show.
All right, I'm gonna get off the line, but I'm saying you need to promote.
All right, meet us at Love Field at 3:00.
Right.
You need to promote that in other people, and I think you should promote the idea of going to big stadia, or not promote the idea of going to big stadiums and applauding some hayseed who is chewing tobacco in the middle of a field of grass.
Some people like that. Okay. Thank you, Charles. Thank you.
Anyway, yes. Yes, humans are terrible. That's right. Humans are terrible, terrible beings. But
we like to be entertained.
We like to be entertained. As I was saying, my objection to it is the huge commercialization they're trying to grow fanatics, right? I mean, it's They
program people that way. It's very calculated. Well, the point that you brought up before is how these huge organizations do hold the cities hostage and manage to get these stadiums through at huge expense.
Yeah.
I mean,
and the same thing when we're talking sports, else. Because where I grew up, college football and college sports were so huge. And, you even see the same levels of corruption in the college levels, particularly when we were talking about sexual abuse and violence, because you protect the team at all
They get a free
cost.
pass.
They get a free pass, and you protect the reputations of the ones that must be worshipped, whether it's Bear Bryant or Vince Lombardi or whoever it is.
Right.
You have to protect all that, and because that supposedly brings in money to the school, but then you have these big donors, and then you're trying to skirt around the rules to give the players money, but you're not supposed to buy the players. They're supposed to just be...
The scholarships, really.
Yeah.
They don't have to, they have to have a certain
a certain grade point average, you have to keep it, and then there's special classes for the athletes.
Yeah, so they don't have
it's like chemistry for football players.
And then they're primping them and priming them and feeding them probably steroids. Who knows? Probably not allowed, but and working them, getting them. Some of them getting injured. For example, there's a rancher in West Marin who blew his knees out when he played for UCLA, and been in trouble ever since.
Yes.
And yes, they get a free ride. That terrible thing at Penn University. I mean, good grief.
I know.
Well, yeah,
listeners, we'd love to hear from you. Please give us a call at 415-663-8492 and join our conversation.
So, and this subject was really brought up from me by watching the Olympics. I watched some coverage of the Olympics, and I watched some coverage of the tennis that just happened, the U.S. Open. Again, huge money involved. The Olympics bankrupts whole countries, Anyway, Brazil hosting first the World Cup and then the Olympics, and the deficit that they're in now, the billions that it cost them when they couldn't afford it. And the coverage, of course, the jingoistic coverage by American channels of the Olympics. It was only the sports that Americans were going to win in that you saw.
That's true.
You only saw Americans winning. You never saw, they're coming in second to Usain Bolt, but...
I think, you have to remember that...
And that rolls over to team worship. And, it's like it's a mini nationalism. It's like a micro-nationalism.
Well, and they have to get the viewers because the coverage is being paid for and hopefully making a profit for them by the advertising. And if the viewership drops... then you have low viewership, you're not going to get people to pay the highest rates for the ads. So
the one thing I love about the Olympics, the one thing I think that's great about the Olympics, because I do like the gymnasts, and I liked watching swimming, two very nonviolent sports, relatively speaking. is there was a feeling of a global, here we go again, global community. I love that part of the Olympics, and I do think that has merit and value.
Even though they're representing their nation.
And even though it's bankrupt, think of all the roads that aren't going to get built in Brazil and all the unbelievable poverty that's ignored. Putting that aside, just the event itself, it's kind of hard to keep that in balance. So, it's fun to watch.
I mean, when we do talk about the whole thing of bread and circuses, it's that I do think it's human nature to like to play. Humans like to play, right. And sports are supposedly should be an extension of play. I mean, I remember seeing the Mayan ball courts, in the Yucatan, but until I found out that supposedly the losing team was murdered. But afterwards,
as they should be.
So
losers.
Maybe to prove Charles' point. But from time immemorial, we've played games.
Exactly. It feels good to run around. Usually there's a ball involved. I don't know why that should be, but or a skull that you're whacking from your horse, polo and all that. If it's supposed to feel good, right? I mean, sports are for exercise. They're to get your mind going, get your body going, get yourself in trim shape and ready for battle. Oh no! And I don't know. It's becomes this other showbiz, horrible, overpowering sort of the blue flickering light on the screen, all the glossy. It's
really evolved so much
overdone
away from that.
I remember the early soccer days when they were all running around in these leather boots, kicking this heavy leather ball around in the mud, and there was a small stadium. Now it's become this amazingly huge thing. And how did all that happen? I don't know.
And I have to say, bringing in that, I do think every human being has a different level of competitiveness. But bringing in, I love to play, board games like Settlers of Catan and Ticket to Ride and things like that, where there's an element of luck and skill, because I don't want something to be all about skill, because then it's too hard and it's not fun to me, because I'm a shallow game player. But, I think that the whole thing, too, of bringing in these elements of creating a game, I think that's kind of wired into us.
Yeah. Well, that's another show. Thank you so much to our listeners, and thank you to our callers. Thank you, Charles, twice. And wait, where am I? I wish to thank all of our listeners and our callers today for your participation. Tune in every Thursday at 11, because your voices really do matter. Yeah, this is all about the collective wisdom. We would have loved to have heard from some fans today, but it was not to be.
Okay, KWMR does not take a stand on any of the issues discussed on Let's Talk. Opinions expressed on the program are those of the hosts and callers and don't necessarily reflect the views of KWMR, the board of directors, underwriters, or members. And next week we'll be discussing addiction, and in particular opiate and heroin addiction, which has had an incredible increase over the last several years, and kind of horrifyingly really taken a rise with young children, 12 to 18. Well, not so young, but the increase has just been incredible. And the impact that has on everybody around that person, and also on the community. And we'll also be looking at, what are the possible solutions that aren't being looked at? So we hope you'll tune in and then join the discussion, which will be lively, because right now I don't know anybody that hasn't been affected by addiction in one way or another, either in their family or with their friends.
This has been Let's Talk on KWMR with your hosts Paul Raffel, Mary Frank, and I'm Robin Carpenter.